following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to NerdProm.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both a player's and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning, and with me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Chris Holmes. How you doing, homie?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I got a full belly. I went to this pub downtown Minneapolis called the Merlin's Rest, had myself some tater tots, dipped them in some steak gravy. Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm a very svelte guy. Sorry you guys out there anyways. But no, I played some golf in the morning with my wife and all ready to go today. Especially because we have the Barbarian himself.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Stark. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Excellent. Welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything cool today, Matt?
No, not really. We went to a friend's birthday party, my wife's friend's birthday party. So it was kind of boring because, I didn't know anyone there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So
myself, I had a card tournament for Star Wars Destiny, played about an hour away from here, and ran into some traffic on the way home. Thought for sure I was going to be late, and then realized, oh yeah, we're recording an hour later than I originally thought. Dum. And I got home, and Melissa had spaghetti made for me, so I was like, sweet. So I'm sitting fat and happy too.
Sweet. So I've asked this of all of our guests. So Matt, what'd you cut your role-playing teeth on, man? What was the first game you played? Where did it all start?
Oh, gosh. I was 8 years old. My older brother, who's 8 years older than me, DM'd for me and my friend.
What? DM'd?
Yes, he DM'd for me and my friend, Brian.
Nice.
I believe this was AD&D.
Cool. Circa 80
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me it was a red box in 1983 or 4-ish. I don't know. And I've been DMing ever since, bastard.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get the D out of you someday.
Con and the Cob. Did I mention Con and the Cob? Everybody know. All right, so let me see. So news. It didn't come out. So last week, or maybe the week before last, all this stuff happens like a day after we record. It seems like.
Yeah, it seems like it.
They announced the Tyrnoth adversary cards for Denizens and Foes of Tyrnoth. This is great. Yeah, this is pretty awesome. I mean,
it was right after we decided we were going to do a show about adversaries.
And then the adversary decks. So what's the next thing? We need to do it on GM screens.
right. Or maybe box sets. I don't know.
Yeah, box sets of, say, I don't know, something like Twilight Imperium box sets.
Yeah.
Oh, something like that.
Netrunner.
But no, if any of you out there have seen or used the Star Wars adversary decks, these are, I think they're kind of a must-have. It's good, definitely a plus add to your DM toolbox.
Yeah, if you ever need to dial up an NPC that a player had, like your players, they got some loot and now they want to sell it and you don't have a merchant, pow, throw a merchant down. You've got it right in front of you. You can reskin them in seconds. They're wonderful. I can't say enough how much I've used those. That is probably the biggest accessory that I have ever used for the Star Wars game is those adversary decks.
That's cool.
So.
Yeah, man, you had a good idea before we started talking about the sheets.
Oh, yeah, if they just released a product that only had the adversaries in a PDF so that you could print them up and put them in page protectors.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they release PDFs for these too. Or
Yeah.
you have the PDFs of the Tiernoth book and the core book, so there they are.
Maybe it's a
gear
user
cards?
online. Sorry, no, go.
Do they have gear cards, or is it just adversaries?
I have not seen the gear cards. Did they do anything like that for the Star Wars line? I know they did.
That was fan created.
That was
fan created.
Okay.
Yeah. There's stuff out there though, and there's plenty of templates.
Yeah.
The GM binder is beautiful for templates.
Yeah.
Not that I know how to use it because I'm illiterate in code, but
And I'll tell you, talent cards would be good too, because man, when I'm playing online with you guys, we have so many experience points now. I have so many damn talents. I got them going all the way around my freaking character sheet. I'm like, what would have I used? So.
Well, you live near the Fantasy Flight Center. Go get some of the talent cards you need for your sniper. I don't want to hear you complaining.
Yeah, well, there's that. There's that. Yes, I do, everybody.
All right, so what we're gonna do for listener feedback here is I have one piece of listener feedback. Good old Jimmy Fett, Jim Parton, sent us an adversary. So we're gonna share him later when we're talking about our adversaries. So we'll skip the listener feedback right now as far as what we've got.
Yeah, so come on now, you 5 or 3 people out there. We wanted those 2 emails each from you.
Oh yeah, I sent out a challenge last time. 2 emails each from our tens of listeners.
That's right.
And I got absolutely 1.
No pressure.
So no pressure. So I've tentatively named, I think this is probably a good name for this. This is episode 12, Lions, Tigers, and Cyborg Bears on Crack. Oh my.
Yeah, I'm going to have to change my the thing I'm going to make to a cyborg bear, maybe. Later. We'll see. We may have to stat that sucker out.
Yeah, or maybe the undead shark and bear like you suggested earlier.
Undead shark and bear. Absolutely.
But so hey, this is a show about adversaries. You wanna head over into the Book of Genesys?
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. All right, everybody. Open up your books of Genesis to page 131. Or your PDF, as we found out, PDF page 132. Last night.
It doesn't count the cover.
It doesn't count the cover, apparently. So we're going to be talking about adversaries tonight. And we basically have 3 adversary profiles. Though we could talk about the adversary talent first.
Sure.
As if we follow the show notes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
What is this?
Who does that?
Who does that? Whatever. So our 3 types of adversaries are going to be minions, rivals, and nemesis. So what's a minion there? Who do we want to Matt? What's a minion, Matt?
Minions are the most common enemies that you're going to face. So there's the stormtroopers, the slavers,
back alley thugs.
That's right. Your mooks. Your groups of mobs. Your mobs.
Yeah, as I have one friend likes calling them bolos. I don't know why.
Your little kobolds that will suddenly more will pop up if you roll despairs. Right?
Pop out of the woodwork.
Pop out of the woodwork. Yeah. So
minions have some special rules that apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should go over those.
Let's do that.
First one.
You know what I do like? Before we get into the rules, I like, and I just reading this the other day, actually, a little while ago, again, this how dangerous are they section. For the minions, the rivals, and the nemesis kind of codifies a little bit what's a little serious what would if you tweak some of these numbers, things could get very challenging. if you do that, and they kind of lay that in here, which is kind of cool.
Yep. So, okay, I can go over that. So a single minion is negligible. It's a threat, and not really a threat to a single PC, unless the PC is significantly impaired, heavily wounded, or otherwise weakened.
Like Kevin
However,
last night.
Yes, poor little Kevin, our gnome primalist, with his walloping 7 wounds.
Yep.
However, a group of 2 or 3 minions should be a reasonable threat for a single starting character. A group of 3 or 4, because they start to get pretty exponential, is a reasonable threat for a PC with at least 100 XP. And then you can extrapolate that out. 2 or 3 groups of 2 or 3 minions should be a reasonable threat for starting party. 2 groups of 3 to 4 minions should be a reasonable threat for a party of PCs around 100 XP. However, make sure you review your minion profiles. It says here, minions with soak values of 5 or higher, wound thresholds of 7 or higher, or weapons that deal 9 or more damage will considerably increase the threat level.
Yep.
So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, because if you have a minion group that has like a soak of 5, and they have a wound threshold of 8, right? And if you throw 5 minions in that group, that's 40. That's 40 wounds. That group
40
has.
wounds.
40 wounds
and,
with a soak of 5.
And they soak the average damage that a weapon does, because the average damage for most weapons is 5 to 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so these are numbers you kind of want to think about. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to really teach your players a lesson and make them run.
Yes.
Which is always a good
Run
thing.
away. It's got a soak of 10. No! A minion group with a soak of 10.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So into these minion rules here. So what do we have for this first one here, Matt? What do we say?
Unless otherwise specified, minions do not suffer strain. Anything that normally inflicts strain or inflicts wounds on a strain. Anything that normally inflicts strain inflicts wounds on a minion instead.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, the next thing there, they cannot voluntarily suffer strain, which is interesting because they can't take a second maneuver. Because when you take a second maneuver, you take 2 strain. So minions, they can't take that second maneuver. Or activate any talents that cause strain. Like something like parry. You wouldn't have minions with parry.
They can't on their own, but I have found ways to do it. One way to do that, if you really want to have a group of minions that you can move around the battlefield like that, have an NPC, a rival or a nemesis with them that has the ability to command them and with leadership skills can give them an additional action.
Ah, there you go.
Additional maneuver. So just as a little GM pro tip there.
But that uses his action, though, doesn't it?
It does use his action, so... usually I prefer it to be a rival that can do that. Just command the minions, and then you have your nemesis doing badass nemesis things. Okay, so the next thing, Chris, what's that?
Well, they don't have skills. Minions don't have skills, but what they do have are skill groups, if you will. So they will list in the what do you call it? In the profile.
Stat block.
In the stat block, yeah. Skills, but they will say as a group only. So a minion, if there's a skill listed there for a minion, it has to have at least 2 or more in the group to use that skill to get like the ranks and such. So because they fight as a group. Oh, which is the next one.
Yeah, and they fight as a group. So they maneuver and fight as a group. Now, again, we use narrative dice. We do this narratively. You don't move the little chess pieces around the board and say, "Oh, I've moved my this minion 5 squares." No, you move your minion group. You can use 1 miniature to represent a minion group. I do it all the time. If you're using minis, just move that 1 minion group, 1 range increment, and they've moved. You don't have to worry about it. If you want to use multiple miniatures to represent a minion group, then just kind of slide them all forward a little bit. That doesn't have to be 100% down to the square accurate because we don't use squares in this game. That's a D shift 7D habit.
In Savage Worlds, well,
Yeah.
that's actually a little more what do you call it? Abstract too sometimes, right?
Yeah, inches. Yep.
Yippers. What we got
Okay,
next?
so, and then next.
Minion groups have a single wound threshold. So if a single minion has 5 wounds and you have 3 minions in a group, then you have 15 wounds for the whole group.
Okay.
Now, one thing that's important to know, when your players are attacking minion groups, they'll have a soak that's only applied once. So say to that group, that minion group that Matt you just described, if I do, say, 9 damage to the minion group and they have a soak of 3, that's going to do what? That's going to do 6 damage. So then what you would do is you would take 5 damage off, or you take the 6 damage off and remove 1 minion because 1 minion has 5 wounds, and then another one would be hurt, with one wound there.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. So, again, like when I don't know why it lists it twice, but minions attack as a group, and they attack as a whole, not as an individual. I don't know why that is, that's listed twice, because we already covered that.
That's true.
But,
so yeah, you're only going to make, so if you have like 4 minions in a group, only roll ones, DMs, GMs, for the group. You're just going to make the one attack as a group, but narratively say, shots are being fired, from, say, stormtroopers that always miss.
Yep.
Right?
Remember, it's not, you're not rolling for one attack, you're rolling for a volley of attacks.
Yeah. That's a good way of thinking about it. Yep.
Okay. So, and then, again, it talks about skills also again. We don't need to worry about that. We've already covered that.
Well,
what about...
to build a skill pool for minions, though,
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So say we do have that. We'll do stormtroopers because, Star Wars is cool. And, stormtroopers are cool.
Oh, let's call them red shirts. Oh, wait, no, go ahead.
Uh-oh. Watch it. So say you have that group that has, ranged heavy, right? Because they got their blaster rifles.
And it's listed in their stat blocker minion profile,
yep. Yep, and they have, and then there's 3 of them in the group, and they have an agility of 2. Mm-hmm. So what you would do is you would get your 2 ability die out for your agility, your 2 ability out for your agility, and then for every minion after the first, so that second minion will upgrade that skill check once. That third minion will upgrade it a second time. So instead of having a 3 green pool, you'll have a 2 green pool, you'll have a 2 yellow pool for the 3 minions. And then once one of those stormtroopers gets shot and taken out, like we did, like I was just describing, now there's only 2 in that minion group. So then when they attack again, it's going to be a yellow and a green. So their power, as you start whittling down these minion groups, taking out the minions, then the power of them will kind of go down too. So that's kind of slick. That's pretty slick.
Okay. And then the last mention here under minions is that critical injuries kill minions. Now, minions, when they suffer a critical, if you decide to activate one with your weapon, it just automatically incapacitates another minion. So it doesn't necessarily kill them. If you would rather you rather keep it PG-13 at your table and you want them to just be incapacitated, you can do that.
Last night, if you have a bunch of drunken bar fools coming out into the alley tackling you, and you don't want to actually kill them, you want to incapacitate them, that's another way to do. That's another thing too.
Yep. And that was in our Terranoth game that Chris is talking about that we played last night with my Grognard group, and I have also a couple of the nerds from Nerds International, Chris included.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Pretty fun.
All right. So that pretty much covers minions.
Do we need to say anything more about minions?
Minions are fun. Minions are cool, and I'm going to make one later.
Yes, you are. Sweet. What do we got next, man?
Rivals. So, I think we should start off with how dangerous are they? What do you think, Matt?
Sure. You want me to read that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, man.
How dangerous are they? A single rival should be reasonably dangerous for a single PC. So your party should find an equal number of rivals to be a reasonably dangerous threat. More rivals should generally equate to more danger, and if your group outnumbers the number of rivals they face, the threat should be more manageable. Yeah. Even more than with minions, the threat of a rival can vary greatly depending on their stats. Rivals with soak values of 5 or higher, wound thresholds of 14 or higher, 3 or more ranks in combat or social skills, depending on the type of the encounter, or weapons that do 9 or more damage increase the threat level from a reasonably to a very challenging. In cases like these, a rival may prove a reasonable threat to 2 of your PCs.
Yeah. That's a lot.
So I'll use an example. Last night, my river crocs that I made for Terranoth. I made 3 really large river crocs. They were rivals, but they had a lot of wounds.
Yeah, they did.
And so a party of 6 spent 4 or 5 rounds plugging away at them, trying to get them off the barge.
4 rounds at least.
Yeah. It took a while. So, yeah, especially the wounds and the soak. If you crank those up, your rivals will be a much higher challenge.
Yeah, it was a tough challenge. And we are, I think as of last night, afterwards, we were up over 100 earned XP. So there were 6 of us sitting at about 70, 80 earned XP. So we weren't anything to, scoff at. And, man, these 3 crocs munched on us. One of the guys, we started changing our names to, what is it, Dalmar or Dunmar the Delicious?
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody kept changing their character names. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. But you know what? Vorn, he's got some sweet-ass boots. Sorry,
yeah,
sweet-ass
boots.
Crocs, I guess. Heavy Crocs.
Yeah, we have a party. We used the crafting rules for the first time in Terranoth, as our party crafter decided to spend some time creating items for everyone out of the crocodile body parts. So it's pretty cool.
That was pretty sweet. So we don't have as many rival rules.
I know, it's great. They're kind of just there.
Yeah, and like PCs, like Nemesis, rivals suffer critical injuries normally. A critical injury will not take out a rival automatically. But if they do exceed their wound threshold, they could be killed outright or incapacitated again. How you see fit there. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty good there.
And then rivals cannot suffer strain like minions. However, unlike minions, they can voluntarily inflict wounds upon themselves to activate abilities, regular effects like taking a second maneuver. They can inflict wounds upon themselves to do that. However, they cannot do so if it would make them incapacitated.
That's right.
And that's pretty much rivals. They're real easy.
Yeah, and they're basically going to be your named bad guys. They're not necessarily going to be your big bad evil guys, but they're your named lieutenants.
Yeah, it's like Bebop and Rocksteady.
There you go.
The way I equate it, if you look at the credits at the end of a film, you've got your minions are all the extras. The rivals are the guys who are secondary characters. They don't necessarily appear in those top 5-10 characters in the movie, but they do appear as guys below that, like Man on Corner or thugs with bricks. Those guys, they appear like that or they do have a name. If you can name them, especially if you're in a Marvel movie, every NPC has a name, I swear. But
nice.
Yeah, that's the way I equate it. They're the guys that are in the credits, but nobody cares about.
There we go. All right,
Okay.
so Matt, what do we have last?
Nemesis? You want me to read that too? Jeez, that's a lot of reading.
You have to read it. Nemesis,
You don't have
they're basically PCs, right?
Yep, they're pretty much going to have all the same abilities, rules, and applications that a character would have. So they're real easy.
Well, but they can also have adversary talent.
Yes.
I like how. Yeah, we did skip that, didn't we?
It's all right. It's a good time to bring it in.
Yeah, let's bring it in, bud. So why don't you read? So what does the adversary talent do for us there, then Matt?
Just put.
I know what it does.
keep
I don't know what
looking
it does, but I don't know the definition of it. I mean, it basically just upgrades the difficulty of the PC's attacks.
Yep, absolutely, and that's really it. And it's ranked. You don't have to worrying about it being a tier 1 or a tier 2 talent or anything like that. Just adversary 2 or adversary 3. Like last night, your Nemesis was adversary 3. So we're upgrading our attacks 3 times last night. And because last night I think we had one where we were actually upgrading the check. It was a short ranged attack, 1 purple, right?
Yeah,
I think we ended up upgraded it like 5 times.
5 times. It was automatically upgraded because the person was firing into a melee.
Yep.
And then she had adversary 3. So that was 4 times. And then the GM, I don't know who that guy is, spent a story point to upgrade it a 5th time. So, yeah, no, adversary basically, okay, so the reason why they created the adversary talent says here on the little sidebar on page 131. The reason why they created it is because when we'll talk about this when we get into creating the adversary profiles, it's to replace all those chunky defensive talents. You don't want to remember what defensive talents your NPCs have as a GM. Forget it. Don't bother with dodge. Don't bother with sidestep. You don't need to give them those. Just give them adversary. Adversary is, as long as you remember to use it, leave yourself a Post-it note on your computer, stick it to your forehead, have somebody across the room punch you every time you forget it, whatever you need. It's a passive talent, and it just replaces all those defensive talents that players could take.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good
It's
addition.
ranked. So
How do you balance that when you're creating an adversary? How do you balance the number, say 2, 3, 4?
I think that might be in the creation rules. It talks about that, I think. But go ahead, Chris.
I would say your rivals should probably be an adversary 1, maybe adversary 2.
I would never give a rival adversary 2 unless my players were sitting at a lot of earned XP, 250 plus.
Okay.
I almost always only ever give rivals adversary 1.
Okay.
And that's the suggestion, I think, in their rules here.
Cool. And then I would say your Nemesis, anywhere from like adversary 2, 1, 2, 3, or 4. I guess it'd probably depend on how many PCs are in the group, their experience point level, right? And what
adversary 4 should be like an epic monster.
Like Darth Vader or something.
I think actually Darth Vader, his stats, I think he's almost like adversary 6. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. And I honestly, I mean, anything above 4. I mean, think of it. Your average melee attack is 2 purple difficulty as an average attack. If you're upgrading that 4 times, you are 3 red dice before any story points are spent.
Yeah.
And then with adversary 6, you're at 4 red dice before any story points are spent. So, I mean, think about that before you give an adversary talent above 3 to anything. 3 is usually where I stop, unless it's like a campaign boss.
Yeah, and she was pretty nasty last night. Yeah, that was a pretty nasty fight.
Well, and not just because they had superior position, And this was a very challenging encounter for 6 PCs, but it was the adventure. It was the boss fight for the event for this kind of section of the adventure. And in that group, I had a adversary 3 nemesis, a adversary 1 rival, and 2 minion groups of 4.
3.
The 3.
One behind us too. Yep.
2 minion groups of 3 and a third minion group of 4.
Yep.
And they had superior position. They had the players completely surrounded to start, and 2 of the minion groups had the high ground for ranged attacks. This was basically set up in an alley. So I mean, it was a challenging encounter for 6 players. Very challenging. We had 2 players on the brink at the entire game, or at the through the entire encounter. They were up, down,
Yeah.
on
good.
fire, stop, drop, and roll, covered in blood, all kinds of stuff.
Yepers.
So yeah, so that pretty much covers, the adversary. Now it tells you on page 134 how to read an adversary profile. I don't know. Do we want to go over all that?
We don't necessarily have to, other than the fact that, when you are creating your own and you're putting it in your own setting that you may want to share with people or whatever, they will typically have like the name of the adversary and the type, whether it's a minion, rival, or nemesis. They'll have a description, which, reading the description can kind of pull out some ideas of where you might want to throw these adversaries. And then, of course, you have your characteristics. All of them will have a soak, defense, and the wound thresholds, maybe as strain thresholds too, if you have a nemesis. And then, of course, you'll have like the skills listed, and for minions, they will call out group only on them, which is good. And then you have an area there for your talents and abilities, and then in the equipment section is typically where you have, your weapons and other things, and you don't have to list everything. You don't necessarily have to list backpacks. You may want to list credits, or whatever they might be, silver pieces or whatever. And I know in some of the profiles, especially in Tiernoth, underneath there, they also list down, like spells, which I really like, where they kind of lay out, hey, here's a typical spell for a necromancer, and they may give it a nice name, like, Death Touch or whatever.
Right, but don't let that limit your imagination either, because they can do any kind of spells. It's just they're specifying special ones for them.
Yep, yeah. It's just to give you a quick rules for a spell if you don't want to look up the spells and build your own, or if you want to have like a go-to attack for your villain. Everybody likes to fall back on the magic spear or the magic missile.
Yep.
So, yeah, and I'm going to throw out a little GM pro tip here.
Sure.
When it comes to equipment, don't give your NPCs equipment you don't want your murder hobos to get.
Well,
no thermal detonators.
Yeah.
Almost convinced Tony to go a little gonzo last night, though.
Give them blaster pistols. No. I had so in the Fantasy Grounds adaptation for Genesys, it still has all of the NPCs in there as Star Wars NPCs. I have to reskin them all, and I completely forgot to reskin the weapons for my encounter, so I had to take a few moments downtime to reskin their weapons because they all had blaster pistols. Chris is like, just let them have them. Like, no. You guys are not getting blaster pistols.
I swear we're not going to loot them. We wouldn't loot them.
Pew, 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 pew.
Dude, you could go old school. You could go old school gonzo on us, man. And Tiernoth. That'd be great.
Yeah. Let's destroy the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good tip.
Yeah. All right, so that pretty much covers it. There's the golden rule, obviously, err on the side of caution. When you're doing counters and whatnot.
Yeah. I read that earlier. I'm with you, Matt. I'm like, whatever.
Just make what you want.
Here's the thing, and this is why I say never bother with that. You, as the GM, control the lethality of the attacks of your NPCs. Your NPCs do not have to spend their advantage on crits and crits that can kill. Your NPCs can just knock your players down to 0 wounds, put them in prison smocks, and throw them in a jail cell. You don't have to worry about, you don't ever have to kill, you don't ever in this game have to kill your players. It's fun.
Well, you wouldn't. Well, first off, here on the Find a Narrative podcast, we don't recommend killing your players.
Oh, well,
killing
player characters. Sorry. Sorry.
Player characters.
I meant PCs. I did, really. I meant it.
You meant PCs. I know you were wanting to strangle us last night a little bit, Tony. I understand.
Well,
you are.
Sometimes they just need to learn to run away, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A good way to teach a group of murder hobos how to run away is to smack them in the face 3 or 4 times and leave them in prison smocks.
There you go.
Or send an AT-AT to take them out.
Maybe.
Pink mist.
Send an AT-AT, then a TIE fighter, then an AT-AT until they get the picture.
No, we haven't got the picture yet. Don't worry.
I'm pretty sure those guys are hard-headed. And they're not going to learn.
No, not at all.
All right.
So you do have another rule here for Nemesis, which you actually used last night, which I thought was pretty damn cool. No, you didn't use it. Did you use it last night? No, you didn't.
No, I used it in our last Star Wars session.
That's true.
Oh, you're talking about the one on 204, right?
Yeah,
yes.
204.
So this is an alternative rule for Nemesis. It's listed in the alternative rules section, and it does appear on page 204, and it's called the Nemesis Extra Activation Rules. And all it is that, okay, so if you have your Nemesis, particularly if your Nemesis is the only person that your players are facing, the only adversary, you can use this rule to give them an additional action slot. So they'll never get more than 2 maneuvers in a turn. That rule still stands hard, but they can act on their normal initiative, maneuver, or not maneuver, and then they get to act again at the end of combat. You just tack on an extra NPC slot at the very end of combat for them to take a second action and or their second maneuver. And voila. You have now a very formidable NPC just by giving them extra actions.
You can't. They can't take an extra maneuver. They can't go over 2 per round.
They cannot go over 2 for the round. Not that I have
because it
noted.
does say
maybe
here, it does take.
Maybe
2.
it did change from Star Wars to this. Maybe it did.
Might. The thing that it says, your Nemesis may take 2 turns during a single round. Any abilities that last until the end of their following turn last until the end of their first turn on the subsequent round.
Okay.
So you basically roll twice, recording both results, and then those are their initiative slots. But I think the way you did it, you rolled an initiative slot, and then you just had them go at the end of the round for the second one.
Yep.
I think it's what and what. I think it doesn't really matter what you do. Either way, you can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always just added it to the end of the round because you want to basically if you have I guarantee this if you're good at building your NPCs, they're either going to have cooler vigilance, they're going to have a decent initiative, and so they're going to be near the top for your Nemesis. They're always going to they're going to be either first through third to act in a given round, and then you just tack their second action onto the end, and you're good to go.
Right.
Yeah, that simplifies the initiative process too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't say here that it can break the hard no more than 2 maneuvers in a turn rule. It doesn't say so specifically that it can, so therefore I just default to the rule that you can't.
Oh, gotcha.
I would treat it as 2 separate turns. So if you can do it on 1 turn, you can do it. That's the way I would treat it.
And that's basically up to the GM. If you find that you're doing this and your players are still getting their way over your adversary, your nemesis, and not really breaking a sweat doing it, then yeah, let them take multiple maneuvers. There's nothing like that nemesis sniper sitting off in the distance with two maneuvers to aim every action he gets, and he gets to shoot at you twice around.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Ooh, you just gave me a nice idea. Way to go, Tony.
Yeah. Oh, minion group distraction. Nemesis adversary out there hiding, sniping. Just saying.
Oh, yeah. Matt, I do believe we might be seeing that in Star Wars at some point.
All right, so that pretty much covers NPCs on how they're put together, but there's some hard rules that they give us for creating our adversaries or NPCs. Page 202 through page 203, it talks about all the things we kind of talked about a little bit in reading their profiles and whatnot. But there's a couple other little things here. Do you want to go over them now, or do you want to hit them in setting the tone?
I'd say you know what, since we're going to be we're each going to create adversaries, let's go through this in setting the tone.
All right.
All right.
Okay, welcome to Setting the Tone. This is where we, your GMs and guests, design things for settings that we work on. Now, I have been working on Middle-earth.
Before you go a little further, Matt, are you a GM or a DM?
I'm a GM.
Fuck yeah. Up yours, Chris. No, just kidding.
This is not D&D, okay?
No, it's not. You're right. Okay, sorry, Tony.
No, it's all right. You could be a douche master. I don't know. So.
Oh my gosh, you guys are
all
harsh,
right,
man.
So yeah, I've been working on. Yeah, my Middle-earth conversion. Now there's other Middle-earth conversions out there, as I've said, but mine is strictly converting the stuff from Cubicle 7 over to Genesys. So I'm going to do a minion. Mm-hmm. And then, Chris, what's that setting you did?
Primeval Thule. It is It is a Cthulhu-esque, Conan-y, primeval awesomeness of a setting, and I'm going to be creating a brute, a rival from that setting.
An undead shark and bear.
You know, it might be. We might go a little gonzo in the Primeval Thule setting and do that cyborg bear. Or maybe
it could be magical cybernetics.
No, a cyborg saber-tooth tiger.
Oh my dear, no, please.
With lasers. Okay. All right, Matt, how about you?
Well, this isn't one that I'm working on. This is actually one that I was reading some other stuff and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to make Mumra.
Oh, sweet. From Thundercats. Awesome.
Sweet, dude.
All right, and then we also have our bonus adversary that's going to be a nemesis, and that was sent to us by Jimmy Fett.
Awesome.
And I fought against this thing during NIV-Con 1.
Did you?
In his Real American Heroes setting.
Yep.
And I gotta say, it's freaking evil.
Nice.
And Chris, if Jim said it's fine if you want to, I don't know if you can put a copy up somewhere for people to see on the social medias. I can put it up on our Facebook page if you want.
Yeah, that'll work.
But it's pretty cool. He's even got an awesome picture that goes with it. So,
nice.
All right, so let's get into this.
Sure. So we were going to go over those creating an adversary, kind of the steps you might go through?
Yeah. So, step 1. What is it? Matt? Step 1.
develop the concept. What are you trying to make?
Yeah. And I think we have them. I think we've all pretty much have our concepts.
This usually isn't a brain fart for most people. You have an idea of what you want to throw at your players.
Right. How do you guys get inspiration for these for your adversaries? I see pictures. I cruise around Pinterest and see. I think I have a BBEG's board that I just see a picture. I'm like, oh, he's gonna be fighting somebody someday. How about you guys?
Yeah, same here. Pinterest, and I have numerous monster manuals that I'll just peruse every once in a while.
Oh, cool.
Yep. Any good piece of art. I use Pinterest and Tumblr for art pages, and I have hundreds of pictures saved that I love to stat out. Also, another thing I like to do is take like familiar familiar tropes and kind of turn them on their head. So if you see something in a movie, and like a prime example, okay, you see you're watching a kung fu movie and you see these bad guys that are attacking the main kung fu hero. I sometimes imagine them when I'm watching the movies for the 30th time. I imagine them as bugbears, or what if that was instead of being a chain wielding ninja, instead it's a chain wielding shadow creature in some sort of fantasy setting or something like that. I use those kinds of inspirations too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So all of you artists out there, continue to draw art.
Yes, you are wonderful people that do things that those of us around the world can't.
Exactly.
Yeah, keep drawing caricatures of Nosferatu, because that's pretty damn funny.
That was a good one. That was definitely a good one.
I'm speaking of Mr. Stefan Dragonspawn there. He does caricatures of all of us in the Nerds International community. And those of you who've been following us on the social media would see those as our profile pics now.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, he also did your logo for your blog there, dude.
Yeah, he did, and that's pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah.
I know you took a poll of like what you wanted, like the color of his cloak to be. That was awesome. That's good stuff. Anyways.
All right, so step 2.
Yeah.
What do you do, Chris?
Well, you want to choose the type of adversary you're going to create, and we just went over those. Is this adversary going to be a minion? Are they going to be a rival? Or are they going to be a nemesis? Is it going to be your BBEG at the end of the adventure? Or completely right in the beginning of it? Wherever you want to put it.
Reoccurring NPC that shows up right at the beginning.
Yeah, that's another one. It's a fun one, too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come in, beat their asses with them right away, and then send him walking away, and then they really want to come after him.
That's right. And of course, that's kind of your levels of, like, interest, I don't know, the motivations that they may have. Think of those kinds of things, too, while you're thinking of it. Your minions are kind of your mooks, or whatever. They're just your... the fodder that you kind of throw in front, and then your rivals are like we said, your named lieutenants, if you will, the secondary characters in your story if they were in the credits, and then your nemesis would be that one that has the strong motivations. There's the one that's destroying the world or taking over the area of your world or something. Yeah. So, and what do we have next?
Well, then we get into building the profile, and the rules for such are pretty well laid out as suggestions. So I think let's just use examples with our adversaries that we're creating. So
sounds good to me.
Who wants to start?
Well, I think I'll tell you where I would start with this guy. So I have I described it as a Cthulhu-esque brute. Mm-hmm. What does that say to you guys? For me, he's going to be strong. Brute, right? He's going to be a big brute dude. Maybe slam
pretty high
people.
soak. Lots of wounds.
Yeah.
but
He's
not
going to
very
be
smart.
fearful.
Pretty fearful. That is true. Maybe not too cunning. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I'm thinking
Not a lot of active talents.
probably not a whole lot of active talents. No. Definitely want him to be fearful, so he'll probably have a special ability of causing fear. Maybe not be too agile. So I'm thinking, maybe a brawn of 4, because I'm thinking of like, a brawn of 4 would be like a big bear or a big, I don't know, just a big brute. But his agility, I'm thinking maybe 2. It's kind of average, right? He's not going to be really stumbling around. Intelligence.
Definitely want that to be a 1. If you want him to be brutish, you want to keep that nice and low.
What's next? We have cunning. I said probably not too cunning. So probably a 2. Average
Okay.
there. Willpower. What would be willpower? Like their discipline, those kinds of things, easily mind controlled or something too, right? I'm thinking that might be pretty low too.
Sure.
Meaning you might be able to. So I'm thinking maybe a will of just 2. It's not going to be anything that's putting out there, but maybe a presence of maybe 3.
Right, because presence fuels all your social skills, including the negative ones, like, well, not necessarily negative. Coercion is more of a willpower. But you want a fearful monster that has a bit of presence to it. So yeah.
Yeah, so as far as my characteristics, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And everybody out there, it's 2s are basically your average. Think of like your average human. Those kinds of things. So going up and down from there, and because he's a rival, 1 score in a 4 and maybe 1 or 2 with a 3 would be reasonable. You probably don't want to go any higher than that for a rival.
That you would see those same stats on a beginning character.
Absolutely. There you go. That's a good thing there. So I've got my characteristics done. Who wants to go next for their characteristics?
Oh, I'll do my minions.
So I guess I could have named this guy.
You figure that out.
Yeah,
you figure that out.
You
figure that out. Right now, I'm going to get into my minions. So, in the Cubicle 7 stuff and in the lore of and that's why I really like the Cubicle 7 stuff, because there's this really really rich lore in this setting. In the lore of Middle Earth, vampires were just bats, and they were intelligent. Some of them were just mindless bats. Vampires were a bat-like creature, and they just called them vampires. Now, then they have another one that's bigger, badder, and it's called a secret shadow. But I'm going to stick to the vampires, also known as a great bat. These are unusually large bats with a taste for blood. So, as a minion group, they're bats. They're really light. They don't need to have a lot of strength. So 1 brawn is just fine. But they're a flying creature, so keeping them quite agile. I put an agility at 3. Being an animal, they have an intelligence of 1. And however, they have very keen senses, and a lot of your sense-based stats are based, or skills are based on, like perception, are based on cunning. So I'm going to give cunning of 2. And then I put them down as a willpower of 2 also, because, again, vigilance is kind of fueled by willpower. And then last but not least, a presence of 1. So they end up with 3 1s in stats, a 2 and a 3. And that's pretty high for a minion group, but, I mean, not super high. That's pretty average.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Matt?
Okay, so Mumra, the ever-living, he's a demon priest. So he's basically a decayed mummy who gets his power from the 4 statues inside of his pyramid temple. He can summon the power to transform himself into a new powerful a more powerful warrior. I mean, of course, so I have to say he's got a spell ability called Augment, which allows him to transform into that other more powerful being.
Gotcha.
But when you do, you have to say, "Ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form to Mumra, the ever-living."
It's awesome.
That's 50 pieces of awesome. Nice.
So, as his original form, the mommy, he's pretty weak. So I gave him a brawn of 1. I was really, the agility I gave him a 2. I really didn't want to give him another 1 because he is a nemesis. But as a mummy, he is kind of not very agile. So I wasn't sure on that one.
2 seems good. Yeah.
And intellect, I gave him a 4 because he's basically a wizard. So it's pretty important. Cunning of 3. He's a pretty smart guy who's always trying to outdo the Thundercats.
Nice.
Willpower of 3. And I gave him a presence of 3, and I was thinking that might even be a 4. I'm not sure on that one either.
I think you could probably pump that up to 4. You want 3s pretty much across the board for a nemesis, with 1 low dump stat is usually your kind of go-to.
Right, but with his augment ability, I was going to use that to boost up his brawn to a 5, so that's pretty powerful.
Oh yeah.
There you go. That works.
Now I'm looking at the one that Jim sent us here.
Oh yeah.
His nemesis. So,
Yeah.
should I reveal what it is now?
You know what? Can you reveal the characteristics with maybe not revealing what exactly it is?
I sure can. So this nemesis here has a brawn of 5.
Oh.
It's big and strong.
Yeah.
An agility of 4 because it is. It would normally, I would say, be a 3, but this one is cybernetically enhanced.
Awesome.
It is intellect 1. It's got an animal intelligence.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
But it's got a cunning of 3, in that is a keen hunter.
Okay.
Average willpower at 2.
Mm-hmm.
But a presence because, again, it's got fear ability. Presence of 4. Because I guarantee you are pooping your drawers the minute you see this thing.
I have a guess, but
Yeah, I think I know what it is too.
All right. So, okay. So after you've got your stat or your abilities, what's next? Characteristics, then.
we do our thresholds, our wound and strain thresholds, and then our soak and defense values. Now, remember, we're not going to be listing out, it's got 3 grit talents, it's got 2 toughen talents. No. You're just going to throw some numbers down here. We're not going to list those talents in that area. These are just going to be some numbers that's what you think. So, for my Choggoth...
Oh, nice.
Well, we know that soak is based on brawn, so my brawn is a 4, so it's going to be at least a 4. Now, what kind of hide or what other kind of armor or whatever this thing is doing? I kind of want it to be able to soak, have a pretty decent soak. I'm going to put it at a soak of 6 for this.
Okay.
And and those crocs that we fought last night, having that be having some wounds that are maybe double, or maybe maybe in the high teens, low 20s, would make it tough. I don't know. I don't remember how many wounds those crocs had.
They had 26. Normally, now you would want your rivals to have wounds in like the mid-teens.
Yeah.
But in this case, what I have a little rule of thumb that I do. Anytime you crank up the silhouette of the size of the creature, I add +5. So that's just a little rule of thumb of mine. So you can add +7, +5 to 7 for each silhouette, depending on how big and nasty you want this thing to be. For me, I silhouette 1, keep them at around 16 wounds. Silhouette 2, that means they're about twice the size of a man.
Right.
That's going to be another +5 to 7 wounds.
This guy might be a silhouette 2. He's going to be a good 7 feet tall, maybe 8 feet tall, so bigger.
So
now it does
23
say here,
wounds sounds good.
It does say here, unless the rivals should have a wound threshold between 10 and 15, like you'd said, like the mid-teens, unless the rival is a creature or monster, in which case you can go as high as 20 to 25. So yeah, I kind of like the 23. We'll do 23 there.
And then if for instance my Crocs last night, they were silhouette 3, so that was my rule. I started out at 16 for a monster.
Cool.
And then I added 10 for the 2 silhouettes, and that's where I came up with the wounds for them.
Okay, and then I think I might do a defensive 1 for this guy. Would like throwing in a little bit of a defense for this thing. The Shaga.
Oh yeah. Okay, melee defense? I don't think there's a reason to give it range defense, do you?
True. So melee defense of 1, and then range defense of 0. Perfect.
Okay.
That works. Okay, so how about for your bats?
For my vampire bats, so they're pretty agile, but they don't have a lot of wounds. So I figure, being as not so brawny. Okay, so not so brawny. I gave them just 3 wounds per bat.
Okay.
I'm thinking either 3 or 4. I am not 100% sure on that one yet. I'm thinking 3 because I wanted to give them a soak of 4.
Okay.
But now that I think about it, instead, I'm going to go ahead and give them wounds of 4 and a soak of 3. Now, the reason being is, their base of brawn of 1. Okay. So, and I'm adding +2. That's a tough leathery hide. Leather armor is like a +2. So I'm adding +2 to their soak for their tough leathery hide. Mm-hmm. So that gives them a soak of 3 and then wounds of 4.
Okay. Which means,
so for each bat in a swarm, 4 wounds.
And that's a reasonable number to overcome. You'd have to do 7 wounds to take out one of these bats. And that's a reasonable 1 attack, right? Can take out one of them. Which is if that's
1 attack, 1 bat.
Yeah.
And you throw a swarm of 5 of these together, and you're looking at 20 wounds with quite a bit of. That's basically they're going to have to do 35 points of damage to destroy the whole swarm. Yeah. So that works pretty good. And I don't think they deserve as a minion group, they don't get strain. And I don't think they deserve a melee defense. But a range defense, because of their agility, seems reasonable. So I'm going to give them a range defense of 1.
Cool. All right. Rock on. What you got there, Matt?
Yeah, so this one was a little bit difficult for me because I'm dealing with 2 different forms of the same person, right? Mm-hmm. So as his mummy form, I gave him a soak of 2 because he only has a brawn of 1. Okay. And then when he transforms into the ever-living Mumra, I gave him a soak of 6 because he has a brawn of 5.
Cool.
Makes sense.
And now that you guys are talking about silhouette size, I realize that he's probably going to be 7 to 8 feet tall, so he's probably going to be silhouette 2.
So you'd probably give him +5 wounds or +7 wounds in his second form.
Okay. Now, would you break out the wounds for each form then? Because I was just going to keep it 1 total for both.
Well, if he's only 7 or 8 feet tall, that can fit into silhouette 1. Though he's still a man-sized creature. He's just tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that could still fit in silhouette 1. You don't have to make him silhouette 2 for that.
Right.
Okay. So then I gave him 15 wounds, 18 strain, and the defense I wasn't sure because I'm thinking defense and adversary kind of go hand in hand. It's just handled slightly differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a defensive 1 for most people who are going to be wearing armor, a 1 or 2 for most NPCs, a 1 particularly, 1 in each, isn't bad.
Mm-hmm. And this is a nemesis too.
Right.
And I think you kind of shortchanged yourself on the wounds a little bit.
You think so?
Yeah. 15 wounds with a soak of 6. That means that your players, a group of 4 players, are going to have to do 21 points of damage. If they're going to average 7, he'll be down in 3 hits.
7?
So would you up the soak or would you up the wounds? I mean, because we haven't gotten to the talents yet, but that's going to change things a little bit too, right?
Yeah, it will.
Depending on your adversary, whatever adversary you decide. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, according to the book for Nemesis, wound thresholds between 10 and 20 are fine. Maybe you want to put because he's an undead immortal entity, maybe you want to put a little higher soak. Maybe give him a +2 to his soak. I mean, because that means someone who's doing average damage isn't even going to put a scratch on him.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so yeah, I'll bump up his soak by 1, so it's going to be 3 and 7 then.
Cool.
And then his wounds, I'm going to change that from 15. Let's go up to 19 for the wounds. And then strain will go up to, say, 21.
Yeah, he's a caster. Being over 20 on strain would be good. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then a melee defensive 1, a range defensive 0, because he really doesn't have a...
That sounds pretty tough.
Yeah, it does.
All right, you want to hear what Jim's got?
Yeah, what does Jim have for these?
Okay, Jim likes over the top. I'll give you that.
All right.
His giant monster here.
Yep.
Now, mind you, this is in a kind of a real American heroes setting, is what he calls it. It's G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe meets other 80s movie tropes.
That could give you guys a hint. Hint.
Yes.
Hint.
Okay, so this thing has a soak of 7.
80s or 90s, I should say.
Yeah, 80s or 90s, and it's not just movie trope. Some of these are from video games and other pop culture references also.
Yep.
This thing has a wound threshold of 42.
Oh. That feels like a really big creature, though. If you're going to
silhouette 4.
Oh.
Okay, this thing is the size of a semi-truck.
Okay. Yeah, I have a good idea.
Being at 40, now come on. In this setting, your characters are going to have heavy weapons with the breach quality, so they're going to be able to get past that 7 soak.
Okay.
And that's one thing you got to take into account when you're dealing with the wound thresholds of your adversaries. You got to take into account the weapons in the hands of your players. If your players are in Star Wars and they all have lightsabers, things with less than 10 wounds don't exist. Okay, because with Breach 1, they bypass 10 points of soak.
Yeah.
So heavy weapons, like a rocket launcher or things like that, are going to have Breach 1.
Yep.
So you got to keep an eye out for that. So that's why I think this thing's got 42 wounds. This is not something we're running across in a fantasy setting for sure.
And I like the fact that he picked 42. Because that's the answer to all questions, right?
Yes, I think that's why he went there. But anyhow,
which by the way, that's the hex representation of the ampersand. Not the ampersand. Sorry, the asterisk.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's why I say answer to everything, because you could just asterisk something and put it like at the end of like Tony's name, asterisk, and then down at the bottom of the page it'll say like Nosferatu. Right? Sorry.
It's all good. All right, so it's got a strain threshold because it's a nemesis.
Yeah.
Strain threshold of 30.
Ooh.
It's not a caster, so it doesn't need a higher than its wound threshold strain. But it's going to be taking a lot of strain carrying around its heavy gear that it's got on it.
Nice.
It's got a lot of metal strapped to its
I
body.
need to try and subdue this thing.
Yeah.
Take
And
it over.
it's got a ranged and a melee defense of 1 for its tough hide.
Okay. Nice. That's
right.
nasty.
Yeah.
That's nasty.
Gonzo Jim, good job.
No, way to go, Gonzo Jim. That's great.
All right, so then we get into the next step,
What's next?
which is skills.
Skills. Okay, then. Let me bring up a character sheet here. See what kind of skills we got. All right, so for my Cho'Gath, for skills, let's think of, well, I'm thinking we're only going to necessarily need 1 combat skill. Brawl.
Sure.
Let's go into social skills. Pretty sure there's going to be a I don't think there's really going to be much coercion, or like negotiation going on, or leadership. This is a big brute. He will coerce the hell out of people. Even though his willpower I didn't put very high, that's going to be the social skill that'll affect. Let's see.
You really only need 1. If it's going to have any social interaction, it's going to be trying to intimidate. So coercion is fine.
It might, yeah. If I wanted to stand up and go, "Roar," that's probably the skill I would use for it, right? Or maybe I would just make it.
I like Oogie Boogie better.
Oogie.
Maybe it goes Oogie Boogie Boogie.
Nice. So as far as maybe, I'm thinking. So how does this thing kind of see the world? I don't know. I'm thinking this thing. It could be fairly reactive. So I'll give it a vigilance.
Okay.
Vigilance.
Yeah, if it depends on how it hunts. If it hunts by stalking prey, vigilance. Or if it hunts by
Right.
sheer if it sets up ambushes, give it cool.
You know what? I actually like that. Oh, and by the way, because I'm creating a rival here, I should probably give it ranks. Let's do a brawl of 2.
Okay.
A coercion, probably 1. And
Okay.
I think I want to go with cool. I think this
Cool.
thing might be sneaky and ambushy.
Level-headed in a fight.
Yeah, pretty much.
So probably a 2 there also.
I'll do 2 there. Yep. I mean, it's got a presence. It gave it a presence of 3, so that'll be pretty good.
Yeah. And as a rival, you don't want it to have more than 3 in anything, really.
Yeah. And then I think, because it's going to be kind of an ambushy type of brute, though it's not very agile, maybe because of its natural hide, maybe it's like dark-skinned or something like that. To represent that, I'm going to give it a stealth of 2, and maybe a special ability if I think about it. Maybe it gets bonuses to stealth. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
In darkness, yeah,
In darkness, maybe. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that's good. That's 4 skills. Am I in the realm here of what is required for a rival?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, for a combat rival, you're looking at 4 to 5 skills. Yeah.
that works. And
Now, if you're looking at more of a more in-depth nemesis, you're obviously going to have a list of
Right.
more than that. So you could 6 to 10,
and again,
6 to 8. Sorry,
Yeah,
6
yeah.
to 8 skills, about comparable with a player.
Yeah, and again, this is a rival, so maybe comparable to a beginning character, which would only have like 2 ranks in a skill anyway. And if I do what's that?
Your characters are going to choose 8 skills and have ranks in 4 of them.
Yeah. So with this brawl, being its main attack, right? As a GM, I can spend those story points and, upgrade that skill that 1 more time. So I think that's good.
Okay.
So
So as for the bats, they're just a monster. They're a throwaway monster. They're not super. They're not going. I don't need social interaction with them. They're minions, so minions are going to get 2 to 3 skills and be done with them. So for my bats here, they're just like I said, they're kind of a vigilance predator that kind of flies above and looks, and then they're also very perceptive. And they need 1 combat skill. You don't need to give them combat skills for any attacks that they're not going to be making. So in this case, they're a throwaway minion with 2 to 3 combats or 2 to 3 skills. Their group skills are going to be vigilance, perception, and brawl, and that pretty much covers it.
Cool.
All right, how about Mum-Ra?
Mum-Ra, he's going to have Arcana of 4 because he's lived for an eternity and he knows his shit. He's got a Brawl of 3 because when he's that big dude, he's going to be pounding some fists.
Yep.
He's got Cool of 2 and a Discipline of 2, and I gave him a Knowledge Lore of 4.
That sounds reasonable to me. If he's been around so long, that sounds good. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean he's got to know where to get that Sword of Plundar.
Nice.
So how many skills is that total? Is that 5 or 6?
1, 2, 5.
Yeah. So you could get away with probably 1 or 2 social skills on him, like leadership.
There you go.
I wouldn't really say he's a leader, though. He's more coercive. I would give him coercion.
Cool.
Okay. Okay, what about deception?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that he does. When he augments himself, he'll transform into other people and try to trick people.
Cool. What did you have for cunning for him?
Cunning was 3.
Okay, that works. Nice.
So yeah, you might want to dabble in those. Maybe like a 3 in deception and maybe a 2 in coercion or something. Or you could put 2s in both. Mm-hmm. I could see both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say 2 in both.
Yeah. Cool. And that puts him at around 7 skills, and some of them are pretty high, and that's really good for a nemesis.
Oh yeah, that's what you would expect.
Right. Okay, so Jim went the route of 1, 2, 3 skills for his nemesis. He went the route of 3 skills, but they're all high. Okay, so this creature has a coercion because very large and fear-inducing. Has a coercion of 3. A brawl of 4.
Ouch.
Yeah, couple that with its 5 brawn, and it's a pretty nasty melee combatant. Mm-hmm. And then a gunnery of 2.
Wait, gunnery? A gunnery?
Gunnery.
Oh boy, gunnery.
Now gunneries. Now we haven't really covered gunnery skill.
You did say that he's going gonzo on us, so
yes. Gunnery is the skill used when firing vehicle-mounted weapons.
Oh my! This is.
I personally would probably also give this creature a survival of 1 or 2, just because it's a predator, a hunter.
I'm good with. You know what? You're
but
right.
you really, I mean, if it's only for a 1-shot, which is what he created it for, was for a 1-shot adventure, you don't need that.
Because you're going to have them show up at the speed of plot, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So, but maybe perception, vigilance, or even survival could all be piled onto this thing. Maybe 1s each, 2 each. You don't have to put them on there pretty thick. I'm thinking you're pretty thick on the skill points that you have spent with brawl and gunnery.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, has anybody guessed what this thing is yet?
I think I might have seen it on the what do you call it, on the forums.
Yeah, do you want us to guess now?
Yeah, go ahead,
Matt,
guys.
You guess. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was gonna say a T-Rex with a cannon.
Yeah, it's not just a T-Rex with a cannon. It is a Metal Gear T-Rex, known as the Heavy Assault Subjugated Bipedal Retaliation Organism, also known as the Hasbro. For short.
That's
It
good.
is
I like that.
It is a T-Rex that is cybernetically enhanced with the ability to control vehicle mounted. It looks like it's got like the wings of helicopters with missile launchers coming off of it. Big heavy machine gun coming off of one side of it. It's a pretty badass looking thing. I know most of us have seen the art for this thing around over the years. Yeah, this thing is nothing to cry about. But giving it those 3 skills, coercion, brawl, and gunnery, maybe you don't want it to go first. Maybe you don't want it to have a high vigilance or cool. Maybe you want players to get a chance to, shit their drawers and run. Pretty cool, though.
Well done, Jim.
All right, so that is it for skills. The last 2 sections, I think we can go over both of those pretty much
together,
and that would be talents and gear.
Talents and abilities in gear.
Yeah, talents and abilities in gear. Sorry.
Yep. So let me see. So for my Cho'Gath, my Cthulhu-esque brute, I definitely want to give it the adversary 1 talent for sure.
Okay.
I do want to give it the ability called Ambusher in the Dark, which you'll get a boost die to stealth checks while in the darkness. And yes, the players will get those 2 setback die due to darkness as well. This is my way of saying on top of that, because of its
double
dark
down.
skin, kind of double down on that. And then as far as equipment goes, I'm thinking it's basically going to have like a pseudopod.
Pseudopod strike.
Like a pseudopod, yeah, I don't know. Pseudopod strike. And it'll probably have a damage of maybe, I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 plus brawn, which would give it a base damage of like 6, maybe 7. I'm liking this thing to be having a 7. A critical, because it's more of like a slam attack, it's not going to be as easy to crit with it, so maybe a crit of 4.
Nice.
And then, of course, engaged range. It has no. You know what? No, we're going. You can do this at short range if you want.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you could reach out.
You could reach out. Oh, by the way, this will be a brawl attack. So we want to list. I think the way they do it is like skill first, then damage, crit, and whatever. So you can do a brawl attack at either up to short range with it. So we'll ambush you at short range, and he doesn't have to move and get out to you. Let me see. Is that about it? Do I want to do something like anything special regarding
claws or bite attack or?
Well, maybe I'm wondering. Well, so what do we? So I'm thinking maybe this thing. Do you think it might have like a bite attack? Maybe grab it and bring it in.
It's got to eat somehow.
It does.
I picture it with a big toothy maw.
Sweet.
Reaching out, grabbing. Okay, so for some reason I have this like really Cthulhu-esque looking roper in my mind from D-Shift 7D.
I like
that. But it can move around instead of just being stuck in one spot. It's got a big toothy maw. That's what I have pictured in my head anyway.
Cool.
Or like an O2 type.
And I'm thinking for that, it'll be a brawl attack as well.
Sure.
Damage 6.
That seems reasonable for a bite.
Yep. And I'm gonna give it a crit value of 3. Okay.
Okay.
Engage range, but I'm also going to do Pierce 2.
Sounds good.
A toothy maw, man. And I'm thinking this pseudopod strike it'll disorient you for a couple rounds, maybe disorient 2. Is disorient? Is that the number of
yes.
The number of rounds?
Yep, ranks in its number of rounds. They're disoriented.
And that's just a setback die to everything, basically, right?
Correct. Setback die to all checks.
Yeah. So that looks pretty good for a rival. 2 different attacks, that'd be kind of cool. So you could disorient them, and pull him in. I mean, I could see the pseudopod strike. Maybe if you get hit with one and he does the disorient, maybe you grab him and there's like a brawn check to maybe not get moved into its mouth, and then the next round, munchy, right? Okay, cool.
All right. So I have for my vampire bats, my giant bats, I have a couple of things here. They have listed that they're sun sensitive. Sun sensitivity. So what I'm going to do is in sunlight, any kind of direct sunlight or bright light, I'm going to provide them with a setback die. Actually, two setback dice for their sun sensitivity. Mm-hmm. So that's an ability. They don't have any talents. They're just minions. And then another, it says here that they have keen hearing. So anytime they make a vigilance or perception check based on hearing, this is for their sonar, I'm going to apply 2 boost dice.
Ooh, nice.
So that's a simple. That's simple. Right. Yeah. They like to get the surprise. They're ambush predators. It's perfect. And then for their attacks, I'm going to use just a bite, because they don't really attack with their wings or anything like that. They just have a bite. But they're little creatures. They don't have a big toothy mouth. They have really sharp fangs in their small mouth. Ooh. So I went with a bite damage of 3, which is essentially their brawn plus 2, which would be about the size, about the damage of a sword. So that's reasonable. And then I gave it, since they're really sharp fangs, I gave it the Pierce 2 quality. Oh, and I'm sorry, a critical of 4. So Pierce 2, and for the last ability on their attack, because they like to drain blood, I give it the Burn 1 quality.
So what does Burn 1 do?
Burn equal to the number of, the rating is equal to the number of rounds that they're going to take the damage, and they're going to take the base damage of the attack for 1 additional round. It's a blood drain is what it is. So even after their bite, you tend to bleed out a little bit.
So let me ask you, so typically burn is at the beginning of their turn. Whoever got bit, is there a soak applied to this? Because it's a blood drain, would you apply soak? I don't know if I would. Granted, they're minions.
I would say
minions.
It's piercing, wouldn't it?
Oh, it's with the Pierce 2 quality. I could see that, but I don't know. I think it's fine as is without it. I wouldn't create any special rules for it. Now, I would if I was creating the bigger, nastier version, the Secret Shadow.
Understood.
That one would probably have burn rating 2 that ignores soak. Yeah, you could totally do that.
Excellent.
But the really thing here I'm getting to is they're only gonna really hurt somebody with their burn rating that is weak already.
Gotcha. Cool.
And that's an indicator of they wouldn't really try to feed on the blood until they're latched onto an incapacitated foe.
Gotcha. Cool, man. They sound pretty nasty, and I don't want to run into them in a dark alley. For sure.
Or on a snowy bluff.
That's true. That either.
All right. So, Matt, how about Mumra?
Okay, so for his talents, I gave him Adversary 2, but I'm thinking I might change that to 3. I'm not so sure.
Campaign boss.
Yeah.
And then I didn't give him any special abilities, so I just went right into spells. So he has the attack spell. He'll shoot lightning bolts out of his eyes. Nice. I gave him the augment spell, so he can transform himself and into the ever living Mumra or to other disguises that trick the PCs.
Nice.
And then I gave him the conjure spell, so he can conjure his Plundarian mutants. The reptilians, the monkeyians, the jackalmen, the vulturemen, and the ratmen.
Now,
awesome.
One thing you could do is, instead of for more talents, is you could give him some of those spells as signature spells. so that you reduce the difficulty of them using the signature spell talent or the improved signature spell talent from Realms of Terranoth.
In that case, I would give him the augment spell as his signature spell then.
Yeah, you can do two, two of them, 2 or 3 of them. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just like his main eye attack and maybe his augment. Both of those could be, the one could be improved signature spell, the augment, and then the eye attack could be just a signature spell. So with improved, it reduces the difficulty by 2.
Okay.
And then with the to a minimum of 1. And then with the attack, it reduces the difficulty by 1.
Okay, so that would go under talents then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can either list it. I mean, you can list those things under talents, or if you want to keep your listing of talents down to nothing, just build the difficulty into the spell below, like kind of how they
totally.
did. Yeah. And
when you put your difficulties when you put your spells in for any caster, if you're going to put spells in and give them names, put the difficulty in the block, like they do in Realms of Terranoth. Put the difficulty of the spell, and then you can just build signature talent, spell talent right into it, and you don't have to list it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if players get a hold of the stat block, go, well, how come their spell's too easy? Or if they see you rolling less dice because you roll in the open, you can just go signature spell, dude.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nice.
All right. Anything else?
Nope, he doesn't have any equipment. I figured if he's got something, then that's going to be something you're going to give him for that specific session. So,
Cool.
Nice.
All
right. So the Metal Gear T-Rex here has talents. So Jim went with Adversary 2.
Oh.
So
Here,
he did.
I was surprised he didn't do Adversary 4.
Yeah, I know, right? But he gives it durable. So durable's going to reduce critical hits against it by the ranks you have in it. It only has 1 rank.
Okay, so by 10%?
Yep, okay. I do believe. I think that's what durable does. I should have looked. It also has Indomitable. Now that one I don't remember what it is. Let's see. All right, those are both in the Genesys core rulebook, in the talent section. Durable is a tier 1 talent, and that is it reduces the critical to a minimum of 0-1 by 10% per rank.
Yep.
It just has 1 rank. And then Indomitable
tier 5
is a tier 5.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Per encounter. Oh, so this is an incidental out of turn. Once per encounter, when your character or when the T-Rex would be incapacitated due to exceeding their wound or strain threshold, you could spend a story point to use this talent. Your character is not incapacitated until the end of their next turn.
Oh
your character reduces their strain or wounds below their threshold before the end of their next turn, they are not incapacitated. Holy buckets.
Yeah.
Of poo. Man, this, yeah.
Then he gives it, I'm going to skip a couple here, but he gives it Swift, because Swift gives it the ability to ignore difficult terrain.
Yeah.
So it basically being the way it's built, it can step right over difficult terrain. It can plow through trees, things like that.
Makes
so
sense.
he gives it the Swift talent. The last one, I love the way he did this as talents, but you could just do it as an ability. He gave it, and you wouldn't have to write it down as talents. You could just give it an ability, give it the difficulty, and call it what you want to call it, and then apply the rules for the talents. He gave it, because of its roar, he gave it Scathing Tirade, Improved Scathing Tirade, and Supreme Scathing Tirade.
Wow, dude.
So when it likes to roar at you, it's basically going to create a shitload of strain.
Nice. Though I do have a go back on mine when we're done talking about the tier this guy.
Okay. And then he gave it 2 talents, or two abilities. The abilities are Oh Hell No. It's at the start of the encounter, all of her opponents, I like how he calls it a she, must make a daunting fear check. That's the fear check. As an out of turn incidental per page, and he lists the rule in the core rulebook, page 243 for fear rules. Okay.
Yep.
So that's just its fear level 4. If you wanted to just put down, oh, hell no, fear level 4, see rules on page 243, you could totally do that. Next one, command authority. This is a weakness. When its control cabin is manned, that is the wire box in its head that controls it, automatically add 1 advantage equal to the number of ranks the operator possesses in an operations skill. Because this apparently has a cockpit on its back.
Oh my god, that's
all
great.
right. This thing is essentially a T-Rex and a hind Russian attack helicopter merged into one creature. Weapon-wise, it has the General Electric GAU-8 Avenger 30mm autocannon, also known as the same gun on the nose of frickin' A-10 Thunderbolt. Okay, yeah. This thing has a forward firing arc. It uses gunnery, and it does damage 20. Has a crit rating of 5, range of long, has auto fire and linked, because there's 2 of them.
Oh.
Jim, you're a brilliantly devious man.
Okay. Then it also has the MGM 166 low-set SSM. That's I think that's short missile launcher or short surface-to-air missile. I don't know. It's 16 is the ammo. Fire arc forward. Gunnery uses gunnery. Damage 20. Crit 2. Range extreme. Blast 10. Breach 5.
What?
Got these. Whoa, I don't know. I'd give something breach 5, but I mean, if it gets hit with its own missile, it's dead. Cumbersome 3, guided 3, limited ammo 1, and there's 16 of them. So, and repair 1. So it takes a round for it to reload the missile.
Oh, there we go.
Surface to air missile. Oh, that's surface to surface missile. Okay, surface to air missiles, 6 of them. Firing arc, forward, gunnery, damage 30, crit 3, range extreme, blast 10, breach 3, guided 3, limited ammo 1, link 2, prepare 1. I don't want to fight this thing.
No.
And then if it decides to get up close and personal with you, it has a vicious maw.
But little arms, so we're fine.
But little arms. Yeah.
You can't do push-ups.
At least it can't pick up an additional machine gun to shoot you. Vicious Maw. Brawl. Damage is 10. Crit 3. Range is engaged. Pierce 3.
Whoa.
And it's a Vicious Maw, so it has Vicious 3.
Whoa, dude.
I'm surprised you didn't give it electronic countermeasures or anything like that.
I'm pretty sure it's deadly enough. Those weapons are scary.
Yeah, they are.
I don't want to run this thing ever again.
I don't.
The last time I was scared shitless when I was shooting at it with my sniper rifle as we were riding away on a Jeep and it kept missing us.
Well, that's good.
But it wasn't for lack of trying. It was just the dice were not in his favor.
Man, that's nasty.
But yeah,
nasty.
It was pretty nasty. All right. So yeah, that's the Metal Gear T-Rex that he did. And Jim, thank you for sending that in. We appreciate it. And yeah, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, dude. Yowzers. It's crazy. So I did have a go back.
Oh yeah, you're audible. Sorry.
Yeah, because remembering that this is actually a Cthulhu-esque brute, I wanted to give it the terrifying ability.
Gotcha.
Meaning at the start of the encounter, all the opponents must make a hard fear check.
Terrifying rank 3.
Yep, rank 3. Yeah, so that kind of brings in that little bit of Cthulhu stuff into it,
Oh, yeah.
and whatnot. So
Fear and madness.
Yep. That was one of the things I wanted to do for this thing. I just totally forgot it.
Oh, that's fine.
So there we go.
All right, so I think we've pretty much set the tone. What do you think?
I think we did too. How would you, Matt? Great job on the mummy.
Yeah, it sounds pretty nasty, that thing that you made.
Yeah, man. All right. Well,
All right.
cool.
Let's go over to advantageous threats.
Oh yeah. All right, time for your guys' favorite section of this podcast and ours. We love this. Love advantageous threats. So let's see here. Do you want to go first tonight, or do you want me to go first there, Tony?
You can go first, good sir.
All right. Well, okay. So if everybody's listened to the last episode,
there was a to be continued.
There was, and little Semwick was just poisoned the previous round or so. He failed his poison check, and because he got a triumph on it, I think he got a triumph. He failed, but he got a triumph. We were mentioning, maybe he can try and feign death, right?
Yeah.
That he was dead. So let me start building up a little dice pool here. So basically what Semwick is going to do, he's going to try and feign death against this assassin, nemesis, if you will, that just poisoned his ass. So let me see. So he is fairly cunning with a 3. So this is definitely going to be like a deception check. He's a pretty good liar. So we're going to do 2 ranks. He has 2 ranks in that. So I'm going to upgrade those. So I've got a 2 yellow and 1 green pool so far. But his adversary is fairly vigilant, with a willpower of 2 and 2 ranks in vigilance. So this is going to be against a 2. So willpower of 2, 2 difficulty upgraded twice for the 2 ranks makes it a 2 red. So
All right.
that's what I'm starting with.
All right. I immediately.
Matt, feel free as a GM there to throw some of your negatives on me too. Jump in here, whatever, dude.
Well, personally, I remember last session, and you made it a point to point out that Semwick still had the dagger stuck in him.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So let's go ahead and immediately apply a setback die for that.
I'm good with that, sure.
Okay. And then I think your current condition. Was there net threat on that roll at all? I can't remember. You know what? Let's just say that your current condition, though, being on the edge of being out.
I think he's
let's
on
go
the
ahead and put
edge.
in let's go ahead and put in another setback die for that.
Yep.
Now, if you had talents that allowed you to remove setback dice on deception checks, totally would use knack for it.
Would he have the knack for it talent?
What do you think? Would Semwick be a consummate liar?
Yeah, he is. He's a good consummate liar. He would have the knack for it talent.
So you get
think
to remove both of those.
Let's do it. Woo-hoo. All right. What do we think? I think this might be. I don't think he deserves really any boost dice. It's just a whole he's done. He's almost done for. Okay, so
As a GM, Matt, what do you think? You would spend a point here, wouldn't you?
I don't think I would. Would you?
No, because I would think that the villain would have him think that he has him down. That's what I would normally do.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm thinking, because this could be the final curtain call of Semwick, I think I could. I think it's in my wheelhouse to maybe to spend a story point here. Anyway.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm looking at 3 yellow versus 2 red.
And why are you spending the story point?
The story point could be because as stories go, this could be the end of Semwix. If he fails this. That's why I'm spending it. All right, Semwix, stay alive. And this is going to be rolled on the Genesys book. Oh, oh no. Well,
I hear despair in his voice.
not so much despair as failed with an advantage.
Okay.
So what happens?
How many net fails was it?
Okay,
How
so
badly
it was
did you
2
fail?
and 2. So basically, it's 2 and 2, and it basically cancels out. So I rolled 2.
Okay, so it's just a straight up blank no success.
Right, and I'm left with 1 advantage. I rolled 2 advantage on 1 die, and I rolled a threat and a failure on another die. So that cancels out the one advantage. So I just have 1 advantage.
I would say that the advantage knocks out the dagger from your back.
If you would like to as a player, I would let you decide what you want to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the dagger definitely falls out, or at least he pulls it out without really any more damage. But I failed the check.
So the villain
Yeah.
would look down at you and grin as you released an inaudible groan when the dagger came out.
Oh yeah.
Almost inaudible.
And then as our heroes, well, the scene goes dark, kind of at the end of like The Sopranos, right?
Oh, the fate of Semwick is left to hang in the wind.
That's right. All right, excellent day.
All right. Well, I like to mix it up, so I decided I'm going to do one here. My character by the name of Hemlock Jones.
You know, I must say, I love that name, dude.
Yeah. Kung Fu using PI in a 1970s crime game is fighting off a minion group of 5 armed thugs. Using the Street Tough on page 134
Okay.
of the Genesys core rulebook.
That is actually in the area we were just talking about. This is in the adversary profile.
Adversary section. That's right.
Nice.
It's like I picked it on purpose or something.
There you go. Dude, you're much better at this than me.
All right. So yeah, a minion group of 5 of them. I have been fighting in a back alley behind a bar.
Okay.
Hemlock has a brawn of 3 and a brawl of 3. And he has the talents multiple opponents and master in brawl.
Ooh, so he's an experienced dude.
Yeah.
His master's
So
a 4th tier talent, so he's got some experience.
right. And multiple opponents, what does that do? I almost forgot.
I do believe that gives you a boost die.
When fighting multiple dudes.
Fighting multiple dudes.
I'm going to double check that because I think you're right, but I want to be sure. So, yeah, I should have looked
I'm looking it up right now. Yes, it is. It adds 1 boost die to his brawl and melee combat checks when engaged with multiple opponents.
All right, so I have
single groups of multiple minions. Now, I do believe. So that was for FCRB. I was looking at the expanded rules, but
oh, that's fine.
there was one that I think, and then I think you get a setback die if you're only facing 1. I believe that's how that works.
Well, he's used to fighting off multiple opponents, so I don't mind that. All right, so with my Brawn 3, Brawl 3, I have a 3 yellow dice pool and a blue die added in for my multiple opponents talent. Now, Master Brawler, that I do believe allows me to add a green die? I can't remember.
Master allows you to reduce the... that's out of Tiernoth, though, right?
No. Master. No, it's in the core rulebook. When you purchase this talent, choose 1 skill. Once per round, your character may suffer 2 strain to use the talent to reduce the difficulty of the next check, making the by 2 to a minimum of easy of 1.
So that's a
All right, so it's
tier 5
just
talent. Ooh, so he is an experienced dude.
So it is just a 2 purple difficulty normally for a minion group of 5 for melee attack, and I'm going to reduce it to 1. All right, do your worst.
Do our worst. Well then. Well, these thugs. So what are we looking at right now? We're looking at 3
yellow, a blue, and a purple.
3 yellow, a blue, and a purple.
Mm-hmm.
And these are minions.
These are minions.
Are they surrounding you?
Sure.
They are. But he does have the multiple opponents' talent, but...
That doesn't mean they're not going to put setback dice on me for attacking me from all directions at once.
Yeah, that's true. There's 5 of them.
So what do you think? 2 setback dice?
I'm thinking maybe 2 setback die. They got you outnumbered 5-1.
How's the weather or the lighting out here or the footing?
You're in a back alley?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's raining.
Yeah. And a flickering light.
Flickering light, so 1 more setback die for poor lighting.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I don't see any need as a player to upgrade this check. I'm still thinking I've got this thing in hand.
Yeah.
Would you guys as GMs upgrade this?
I think so. Because Hemlock...
Yeah,
Jones-
I think the advantage is in their favor, so yeah.
Yeah,
I think
there's
so.
a reason for despair.
There is.
All right.
They're coming here to just beat you down, man. And
Beat me down.
Take you back to their lair.
They don't want no pesky PI poking around their bar.
That's right.
All right. So Hemlock rolls it up. First of all, my one of my setback dice came up a blank. The other 2 rolled threat.
Okay.
I rolled no advantage. However, I did roll 2 successes
Okay.
for threat. My red die came back as 2 threat also.
Ooh.
But my boost die was blank, and 2 of my yellow dice were blank. So I rolled a lot of blank here.
Yeah, you did.
But yeah, I did one proficiency die with 2 successes on it, and then the red die had 2 threat, and the 2 black dice had 2 threat. So I wallop one of these dudes doing my normal kung fu damage that I would do, and I don't know what that would be, but I'd assume it would be my brawn.
I'm sure.
Plus,
I'm thinking it might take one out.
Yeah, brawn +1, a street thug. I'd probably take out one of them.
Yeah.
The guy who's coming at me head on, I wallop him good.
Yeah.
However, with 4 threat, that's essentially the equivalent of a despair.
It really is. It really is. And when we're talking despairs here, or even triumphs, it kind of changes the battle. It's something that would kind of change the battle to our favor. Team Evil. What do you think? What do you think there, Matt? First thing that popped in your head. What do you think? How do we want to despair this guy? Hemlock Jones.
What weapon was he using?
His fists of fury.
Because of kung fu.
I would say the thugs probably are also like using like brass knuckles or pipes or, improvised weapons. Maybe a beer bottle or 2.
Yeah. I think they so this was your attack on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be one of those things where you might have mollywopped this guy in front of you, right? Taking out this one minion in front of you. And you tried to do that twisting kick kind of around, but because it's raining, a little, maybe a little slippery outside, you fall down and these guys jump on top of you. You know what I mean? So they're kind of like a dog pile, and they got you pinned on the ground right now.
So immobilized.
So basically immobilized, and you're going to need to make some sort, maybe next sort of move or whatever. You'll probably need to make some sort of athletics check or kung fu check to kind of get out of it against these 4 guys that have you down.
Nice.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now, is he going to have a setback because of that?
Oh no, I would fully upgrade the check. if I was GMing.
Yeah, I would think you'd probably have an upgrade
Or increased difficulty check. One or the other.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm thinking it might be an increased difficulty.
So what would have been a hard athletics check the next round, instead for him would become daunting.
Yeah, what was their brawn? Was their brawn 3?
Their brawn was, whatever the street thugs have on page 134.
Yeah, I'm looking. Let me see.
I think the brawn's 2.
The other brawn is a 3.
Okay, yeah. So it would be 3 normally.
Yeah, it'd be some sort of like brawl check or opposed brawl check or something like that. But yeah, it might be pretty tough.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Nice.
All right, Matt, you got one you want to do, or you think we beat this to death?
No, I think I got one. Cool. Okay, so my character is Uncle Jay. He is a luchador with a chicken mask on.
All right.
He's walking down the street, and across the street, he sees his nemesis, El Diablo. Or not his nemesis, his rival. His rival, El Diablo, is trying to mug a little old lady across the street.
Nice.
So he's going to leap into action. He's going to run across the street and try to clothesline this guy.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
So he's got a brawn of 3 and a brawl of 3.
Cool.
And he's got the talent. Where is it? Berserk. He's got the talent.
Berserk.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's page 75. So he gets to add a success and 2 advantage to all his melee combat checks.
I love it.
Nice.
So with the brawn of 3 and a brawl of 3, we're looking at 3 yellow.
Yep. And this is going to be definitely a brawl check, so it'll be 2 difficulty to start, right?
Okay.
Now,
You said this guy was a rival?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking adversary 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So automatically upgrade that sucker. Let's see here.
And
Now,
I'm thinking he's catching the guy by surprise, so maybe
I was
he'll
going to
get a
say,
boost.
is he charging the guy screaming, or is he like attacking quietly? That's where I was coming.
Well, he's berserking. Yeah. He's berserking.
Yeah, he is berserking, right? Yeah.
But I do like the whole. Just charging,
Catching him off guard.
Catching him off guard. I'm liking the boost die on this, man.
Yeah. However, there's also an innocent bystander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's throw a setback and die in for the little old lady.
Ooh, yep.
So would you say he's distracted by the little old lady too?
He's distracted in the sense that he doesn't want to necessarily hurt her. So he's going with the clothesline. He might not try to get her, right? Or something.
Yeah, just a setback die that he's just trying to avoid hitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works.
I like it.
And I don't see any reason to use a story point for him.
Okay. And I wouldn't as a GM. Not in the opening round.
No.
Okay.
Not the opening round. I mean,
So
because of course negotiation round 0's been skipped. Right?
All right, let's see what Uncle Jay does.
I got 3 yellow. I got 1 blue.
Okay.
And I have 1 red, 1 purple, and 1 black.
Rainbow dice. Love it.
Looks good, man. One of everything. Oh.
Well, the good news is I got something on every dice. The boost and the setback cancel each other.
Nice.
All right.
So it looks like I have... I have 1 success and 3 advantage.
Nice.
All right.
So, explain to us how you got the drop on this guy.
Yeah, man.
So the old lady's pulling on her purse and kind of pulls him into the just the perfect position for him to come charging in, and he basically runs in between the old lady and clothesline El Diablo right out in the street.
So the 3 advantage, you want to knock him on his butt?
Yeah.
Basically knock him down. He lets go of the purse. The little old lady probably thanks you. Ah, thank you. What is it? Luchador J? Is that what it is?
Uncle Jay.
Uncle Jay.
Thank you, Uncle Jay.
Very nice.
And then she groin stomps, El Diablo as she runs away. Right?
Right, because she's a retired wrestler herself, knowing how this goes.
That's right.
All right, cool. Well, folks, that is Advantageous Threats today. Thank you for joining us, Matt, on that. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome, dude. Wonderful.
All right, shall we get on out of here?
Let's get on out of here. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight, and special thanks to Matt for joining us from Thoughts of a Barbarian. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the RPG Brewery, run by Jamie Pierson and Stefan Dragonspawn over there. They do interviews, live plays. They have a Patreon. They're on Twitch, the YouTubes, the Google Pluses, part of the Nerds International community, and whatnot. And then let's mention, I think another thing we want to mention is NIV-Con 2. What's that, Tony?
Nerds International Virtual Convention 2. Nice. That will be going on the weekend of September 15th and 16th. Mm-hmm. And yours truly and a couple other people are running some Genesys games. There's also Savage Worlds, Tales from the Loop. There's a ton of games. Nice. If you want to run a game, it's easy to sign up. You can run a game. We'll come on and play your game. Members of the Nerds International community, and maybe even Chris and myself, if you entice us with a cool enough game. That's how I got into Jim's G.I. Joe or Real American Heroes. I thought, I got to try this. Yeah. So awesome. That was fun. I am going to be running one I called is based on a board game that I kickstarted about 2 years ago that I still have yet to get. It's supposed to arrive in the next couple of weeks, called Deep Madness, which is a Cthulhu-esque horror game that takes place in a deep sea mining facility.
Nice.
Cool. How about you, Matt? Are you going to run anything?
I haven't signed up yet, but I think I'm going to be running Operation White Box. It's an OSR World War II game.
I'm sorry that I missed that when you ran it a couple weeks ago, dude. I would love to play in that.
Yeah, so there you go. Pay attention to the signups, Chris. You might be able to get in on that game. And I also may, if it comes out in time between now and then, I may run strictly a Skype game of Legend of the Five Rings, the new game coming from Fantasy Flight. We'll see. Yep. I don't know how long they're going to give me. If it comes out September 8th, I'm not going to have time to prepare anything.
That's true. Yeah. That's
so I do have my friend Dale who is going to Gen Con. He is my scout. He is going to be looking for, see if they have it there, and if they do, pick it up for me. So
nice. Very nice. Very nice. So Matt, you've come on. You have this blog. Tell us about it. Pimp yourself, man.
Well, Thoughts of a Barbarian. You can find me at thoughtsofabarbarian.blogspot.com. Basically, it's just a place for me to write down whatever I feel like writing down. I do lots of reviews. I do tutorials, crafting kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's just a place for me to be able to write stuff that, and if people read it, awesome, but otherwise it's just for me to put it out there.
Honestly, that's the first place I ever heard of and then wanted to try Tales from the Loop when you did your review on that. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah,
That's funny. That was my first post too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you ran that for us at Con and the Cobb last year. I had fun with that. That was a fun game, dude.
Yeah, and I'm running it again at Con on the Cobb again this year, and it's gonna be interesting. I'll say that.
Awesome. Yeah, and Con on the Cobb, that's gonna be in Richfield, Ohio, November 8th through this 11th or something like that.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Well, so us three, we're all gonna be there. I think Jamie, Stefan, probably another Is there? What do you have? About 20 of us from Nerds International going?
I think about 15.
15.
Yeah.
Well, we had about 15 last year. I think it's going to be going higher this year. I think it's going to be 20 to 25.
Nice. That's going to be great. Yeah, so we'll be down near the pool. Going to have like 3 tables. Oh, yeah.
Nerds on the cob.
Nerds on the cob.
All right. Well, you can get a hold of all of these awesome podcasts and blogs over on the Nerds International with the hyphen Google Plus community. We're over there. We're also on Facebook. You can get a hold of me over there, and I'll forward that on to Chris. Or you can email us your your ones of emails. findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. And, of course, you've listened to us. You've probably found us on Podbean, but we're also available on iTunes and YouTube.
Yep.
So.
Been great having you on there, Matt. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. I had fun.
Good.
All right. Well, this is Tony saying, keep rolling them bones.
And this is Chris saying, remember the rule of cool and just have fun, everybody. Good night.
Adios.
Finding a Narrative podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding a Narrative podcast. Copyright 2018, all rights reserved.